Now, sometimes a band's future starts in the rehearsal room, but Ged Duffy's started here, outside Old Trafford football ground, right behind me. After a Manchester derby in 1978, a fight broke out, and what he didn't realise at the time, that the man he was trading punches with would go on to shape Manchester music history. Today, Ged tells the full story. The fight, factory records, and the time New Order bet him to eat the most disgusting sandwich imaginable.
I got to know people through a fight outside Old Trafford. I was stupid. I should have stayed. Done the peel session, gone off to Europe, probably gone to America in New Order, done the album. But Barney and Ucky were two lunatics. They really were.
So it's a very pleasant Saturday afternoon here in Oldham Street in the middle of Manchester, Manchester's northern quarter, and we're sat here in Gulliver's Pub. I'm delighted to say that I'm sitting with Ged Duffy. To those who don't know, anything that happened in the Manchester music scene in throughout the 1980s and most of the 90s, Ged was pretty close to, so close to that he wrote this brilliant book, Factory Fairy Tales, Joy Division, New Order, Factory Records, The Hacienda and Me, published by Empire Publishing. It's a fantastic book. I got my copy from Ged directly at the Loud Than Words Book Festival this year. It's well worth buying if you haven't bought a copy. And we're here, Ged, just talk about the book, but also about, you know, your involvement in music in Manchester and beyond, really. And you've got 1,000,001 story to tell. We don't have 1,000,001 minutes, but you know, hopefully we'll be able to explore, you know, some of the most interesting features that you talk about in the book, and also some other things that maybe aren't in the book as well. So good to see you, and thanks for coming along.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I've got to say, it's nice that we're actually in Manchester and it's not fucking raining for once. But anyway,
it is, yeah. For those of you not in Manchester, rain is the stuff that comes from the skies. But I think we talked a bit about this when I bought it at the Books Festival. But why did you choose to write this? You know, it's a great tome, but what prompted you to write it?
My two lads at home were fed up to the back teeth of me telling stories to them all the time. And so many people I know said to me, you should write a book. You've got so many tales. And I thought, nah, I'll never have time to write a book or anything. And then COVID came along. Yeah. And I thought, you know something, I'll have a go. So I joined a lot of Facebook groups, especially the Russell Club one. And they had a lot of dates of all the gigs. And as soon as I saw the date, I remembered what happened at the gig. Yeah. And that's how I managed to get all the dates from websites like that. But looking back on everything, the weirdest thing, I got to know people through a fight outside Old Trafford.
Yeah.
And that's how it all happened. We was at Old Trafford on a night match, City versus United, and back in those days it was very unusual to have a night match between the United and City because the police didn't like it. So anyway, this fight developed outside Old Trafford on Railway Road.
Wednesday, March the 15th, 1978. Manchester United versus Manchester City. A League One derby. It finished 2-2. City equalised late on. A controversial goal by Brian Kidd, ex-United player. The linesman flagged for offside, but the referee ignored it. Inside the ground, it was dramatic. Outside the ground, it was chaotic. There'd already been trouble in town before the kick-off, and more outside the ground. After the game, a mass brawl broke out in Warwick Street, just over there. The police moved in, and the crowd scattered. Ged and his mate Slim ended up walking down Railway Road, which is the road I'm walking on now, right here. They then ran into a gang of blues. A violent scuffle then broke out. Punches, kicks, chaos. Ged traded blows with a City fan, and the police arrived and broke it up. But at the time, he had no idea who that City fan was.
And I was fighting with this City fan. And then the police came. the next night I was in Rafters to see, I think it was Generation X. And I went to the DJ to say, can you put a record on by 999? And he just looked up at me. And the guy wasn't wearing glasses, and he did his finger up his nose like that on his glasses and went, "Oh, it's you cunt." And I said exactly the same thing to him at the same time, and we both looked at each other. And he said, "I'm Rob." And I said, "I'm Ged." And he put his hand out, and that was Rob Gretton.
No way.
And that's how I met Rob Gretton. And if I hadn't met Rob Gretton, I never would have met Alan Wise at the Russell Pub. So I never would have ended up working in the Russell Pub.
Yeah.
I never would have met Tony Wilson. So the first band was in the Stockholm Monsters, never got on Factory. And it was all through a punch-up outside Old Trafford. And that was it. And that's how my musical existence started.
Yeah, it's cool. And again, for those young people watching, want to get into bands, we don't endorse violence in any shape or form. I thought one of the things that struck me about the book is how personal it is, and you share a lot in the book, you know, all through your life about things that have gone really well, have been amazing experiences, things that have not gone so well. What did you find hardest when you came to write it?
The worst part about writing the book was when my first wife died.
Yeah.
And I kept it in for years and years and years because my lads were only 6 and 10 when she died. She died on Christmas Day as well, to make it even worse. And my Jack, who's the oldest one, he always said to me, "You've never cried, Dad." Right. But when it came to writing about Leslie, about dying and everything, I just broke down.
Yeah.
And I cried for days, and then it was gone. It was like I finally breathed it. Okay, man.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, that was the best bit about writing the book, apart from telling the story, was that I finally felt at peace after all those years.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think that's that part of the book's fascinating because the book, it sounds a bit of a cliche in many ways. It's a love story to the city, to music, to your life. But I think at that point, it becomes quite emotional. Actually, you get drawn in a different way. Actually, when you're telling those stories as well, it's hard not to remove when you read that.
No, I mean, a lot of people have said to me, they laughed, they cried their eyes out, and then they laughed again.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. I like that.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely. But obviously, the book is principally about music, isn't it? As well, and
it's like it's music. It's about Manchester music, football, and life.
yeah,
Because some people constantly said, "Oh, I didn't like all the football bits," right? And I said, "Well, Manchester is football, music.
yeah,
That's fashion.
yeah.
That's Manchester."
And all these labels emerge around the same time, don't they, as well? These small, I mean, the Rabid Records is a good example of that, in fact, later on, and provides an outlet. They want bands, don't they? And you need studios that develop on the back.
You know, and what a lot of people don't realise about Factory is you had to know someone at Factory to get on Factory.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how bad you were. It's like, that was it. But then later on, they started getting more professional. Yeah. And all that.
But your time in Stockholm Monsters is, it's fascinating. For obviously, they do stuff after you leave, but when you're in them, you sense they had a moment then when they probably could have been.
We had, and I look back on it. I fucked it up on totally, because it was there. We had a John Peter. They didn't know anything about it because I dealt with Rob Gretton.
Yeah.
And Rob Gretton wouldn't talk to the rest. He wouldn't tell them anything. He just talked to me, and that because Rob was our unofficial manager, and they couldn't understand that. We were getting him for nothing.
Yeah.
We weren't giving him anything, right? And we would have gone off to America with New Order. You know, we'd have done a lot. But the thing with me is, I'm one of these people that I make a decision. I think, fuck it, and I just go. I've done it with jobs.
That comes across quite strong in the book. Yeah.
I've had jobs where I've fallen out with the boss, and instead of rectifying, I just go, "Oh, fuck this, I'm out of here." And the problem was, when we started the band, it was Tony, me, and Shan. That was it.
Yeah.
And then when we went off to Europe with New Order, Carl France had joined as guitarist, and he was only 16, and I didn't want him. because Carl was a really impulsive 16-year-old. He was just like, no, I didn't want him. And then all of a sudden, Tony was away from me and Slim because Tony had to look after his brother. And then you had Sean and Lita, who were twins, together. And then Lindsay, the trumpet player, she was Sean's mate from college. So all of a sudden, it's like that click, and Nick, you in the middle. Like, and so when we were over in Europe, I spent the whole time with Slim and the lighting guy. We went off all around every city. Oh, yeah. And I just sat in the van, the minibus, when they were driving. We were driving back. And I just thought, oh, I've had enough of this shit. Can't be doing with it, you know. And that was it. I walked away. I was stupid. I should have stayed. Done the Peel session, gone off to Europe, probably gone to America in your order, done the album.
They strike me as one of those strata of bands on Factory that are overlooked because for whatever reason, whether it was Tony Wilson or whatever, had his favourites and others would they get the chance to record but weren't given the attention. I mean, I suppose bands like The Wake are another example of that.
Wilson actually, in one of the quotes, I think it's in there, is that he never knew how to sell the Stockholm Monsters. They were his favourite band. And I saw someone posted something on Facebook the other day of an interview they did with Wilson back in about 84, 85. And Wilson said the Stockholm Monsters were my favourite band. He said, but we just I didn't know how to sell them.
But obviously another big part of your life to do with music, obviously sort of working as a roadie, working closely with New Order as well. And what was that like as an experience working with a band who were just about to go like that, weren't they?
Well, they were great. I mean, they were weird because Stephen Gillian, and you go hello, and that's it. You go talk to them again.
Yeah.
But Barney and Ucky were two lunatics. They really were. It was like they used to have this weird idea. Me and Slim used to speed all the time. So when you speed all the time, you can never get drunk.
Yeah.
Right. So and they used to do this. They used to do these japes on us all the time. I so thought that they'd go in the dressing room and they'd have a loaf of bread there, and Barney would cut a slice of bread like that, and then another one like that, and he'd put the contents of an ashtray on. He'd put butter on it, contents of an ashtray, anything else he could find, he'd put on it. He'd cut it in half and say, right, will you two eat that? So we'd say, yeah, go to $5 for each. Yeah. We'd eat it, go straight to the bog, gone, come back, get the money. Right? So they kept getting worse and worse. And then one day, Barney looked at the rider with all the drinks now.
Yeah.
Got a pint pot, 2 pint pots, one for me, one for Slim, and just poured everything like that there. So we said, I think that time we said a tenner each. Right. Now we're speeding, we can't get drunk.
No.
So we're just like,
Yeah.
and Ucky and Barney's like that, and Gretton, like, waiting for us to go. Right. And we went, sound that. We went off and carried on with the stage work. It's just like, and they gave up in the end. Rob just said, look, you two are just losing your money.
Yeah. Well, they always strike me as being odd. There's this dichotomy between that sort of Salford laddishness and the japes, between this polished, highly arty music and presentation of it as well. Everything was really arty and very slick, wasn't it? As, you know, and that, yeah, there is that contrast.
Well, that was they gave off that impression.
Yeah,
but they were. You think that they were a band and people go to see them and people love them. Yeah, they would write a song during the week, not have it finished, and just call it Untitled or Slow One or something like that. And they'd throw it in on the gig. Right, a new song, and their way of looking at it was, it's a new song. No fucker knows where it's supposed to start and finish. And they'll try it out, and then finish, get the applause, move on to the proper song. And that's where the punk bit comes from.
Yeah.
Tony, the singer, was going out with a girl who we nicknamed Happy Ever After. Right. Dead petite, really nice. And her and Tony were backstage, and we were backstage, and backstage in Rafters, there was a big ice making machine. And the barman would come in and get a bucket of ice and go back out. So Slim wanted to piss. So Slim pissed in there. She sat there like that, really prim and proper and well educated and really nice. And she's watching Slim do that. And then the guy comes back in 5 minutes later.
No.
Yeah, so Slim just turned around and said, I don't think anyone should have any ice tonight. She finished with him that night.
Brilliant. Okay.
But Tony wrote the song Happy Ever After.
Yeah.
Happy ever after, we could be so good together if only things could have been a little better.
Yeah.
Right? Or if only Slim didn't piss in the ice bucket, you know. And
Well, creativity comes from anywhere, doesn't it? That's it. The other band that you talk about a lot in there, and clearly mean a huge amount to, is James.
I love James.
So what is it? What is it about James then?
We started going to Cyprus Tavern, and Derek, Slim and I from Burnage. You had Sean Leiter, and Tony. Sean Leiter from Didsbury, the posh kids. Then you had Manny, Kaiser, and the lads from Beach Red, which were Failsworth and Moston. They were Reds.
Yeah.
We were Reds. Sean and Leiter weren't bothered. And then you had these lads from Fallowfield and Withington, who were Blues. And Burnage, we should be fighting them, right? For being Blues and for being
For about 2 miles up the road. Yeah.
But Slim and I, we got on so well with them. How we met those guys was at the Future Armour Festival, #1. Our mate Lee got battered by the skinheads, but we didn't know at the time until we lost him. And we only found out afterwards it was the 4 lads from Model Team International.
Yeah.
Which was Gibber, Gavin, Jin, and Danny, the singer. They came in and battered the skinheads and saved Lee. So because of that, there's no way me and Slim was going to let Manny and that lot fight him. So we kept the peace, and then we all became one big happy family. But they formed Model Team International, and they started playing, so we'd watch them, and they were great. The only downside of Model Team International was Danny, the singer, was an ex-squaddy.
Right.
And if anyone shouted any abuse or anything, he just jumped off the stage and battered them. So the 4 loved them, and the 4 used to have them playing with them loads of times. And I must have seen Model Team International probably, I don't know, 30 times, 30 odd times at least. And then they got this model agency, contacted them and said, that's our name, we want you to stop. So at this time, Danny had gone, the singer, and Jim, the bass player, his girlfriend, Jenny, was singing. And then they met Tim Booth. And Tim Booth then was a dancer. But so Jenny sang, he danced. That was a couple of gigs. They then realised he could sing, so for a couple of gigs, he did backing vocals and dancing. And then they did one gig where joint singers.
Okay.
And then I think Jim split up with Jenny and she left. So he became the singer. So they wanted to change the name. This model agency had come along at the same time, said, you need to change your name. So we were practicing, and we had a song called James, which was about James Dean. Yeah. It was Hookie's favourite song of ours, and it was Wilson's favourite song of ours. And Gibber, who was the leader of the band, the guitarist, put it all together. Him and Jim were sat there listening to us, and Gibber said, what's this? I really like it. What's this song called? And we said, James. And he turned to Jim and said, we should call ourselves James.
Going right back to where we started, about the stories, you didn't include it. So you've got an updated version of the book coming out.
Yes.
Or you're working on it at the moment.
Yeah. Happy Ever After. Because it's like, people looked at this Factory Fairy Tales and we thought it was a book about Factory Records. It's not.
No.
Our first single was called Fairy Tales. It was on Factory Records. Yeah. So our second single was Happy Ever After. So the updated version,
yeah.
I'm practically rewritten as well. It's called Happy Ever After. And every fairy tale ends happily ever after.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. And I think there's about another 150, 160 pages.
Right. So when can we expect this to come out?
Hopefully around about June, July.
Oh, right.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's And my ugly mug won't be on the cover this time. It's a completely different colour.
So your sales will go to the roof then, probably. Yeah, totally. Honestly, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you. Thank you.
It's been great.
I really enjoyed it, and it is absolutely belting book. If you're not read it, just get it, and honestly, you will. Yes, as Jed said, you'll laugh, you'll cry, but you'll be interested. That's the most important thing you can ask for any book as well. So great, thanks again. I will look forward to volume 2. Still, thanks, Jed.